And you are here on C Major Before the Show. Thank you so much for being with us on this Saturday evening. It's great to have you here. And I am excited about the things that we'll be talking about on today's show. We are talking about chord progressions. So we have been trying to put together some really nice sequences of chords that you can try out for yourself. So keep on listening to tonight's podcast episode, and we'll be back in just a moment. You're here on C Major Before the Show. And you're here on C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter, and we're talking about popular chord progressions tonight. These are progressions that seem to be pleasing to the ear, and they are popular. They've been used in songwriting. So if you have a copy of your chord chart, you might want to get that out tonight. And then also take out a book of chord progressions if you happen to have one. You can find it in your chord dictionary for popular chords used for piano. And if you don't have one, I would say see if you can do a search to find one and get your hands on one. So you'll probably want to play back this episode and then just take some notes and see if you can find these chords and what you have already and the materials that you have, or if you need to get something new. So I'm not sure yet if we'll add this to the syllabus, but we are thinking about doing that, so we'll see what happens. But I also want to give some shout outs on today's episode, so be listening for that. And I want to share with you that last weekend I was able to see some of my friends perform in New York. It was a very exciting time, and the songs that they played, I'm going to be sharing some chord progressions from the songs that they were able to play live for that particular gig, and that I was able to hear and find later on so I could bring it to today's episode. So let's start first with the popular progressions, and then I'm going to read from that. And feel free to take some notes. So what I found really interesting, and I did try out some of these progressions before I started today's episode, because I wanted to see what they felt like, and I wanted to see how comfortable they were, and if it makes sense, if it would make sense to bring it to you. So there's one that I really enjoy playing. I'm just going to start with that one first. So it starts off with the C minor 7th chord, and then it goes to a C major 7th chord, followed by a C minor 7th chord, then a C major 7th chord. So already we're alternating. We have C minor 7th, followed by C major 7th, followed by C minor 7th, followed by C major 7th. So the C minor 7th, you could, if you're playing it in your left hand, go ahead and try it in your left hand, I would say. And then you can just follow this lettering. And let me say this too, a little bit later on, I'm going to be bringing this to the C Major radio show. Now, we won't be podcasting tonight. We're going to be podcasting on tomorrow afternoon, which is Sunday afternoon. So I want to wait and do that with you on Sunday, where I actually give you the notes that you can write on the staff. So I hope you'll be listening for that. But the lettering, if you're going by text notation, you would start from the bottom up, and you're playing an inversion of the C minor 7th chord. So from the bottom it would be G, followed by B flat, followed by C, followed by E flat. And if you care to know the fingering, you can use 5, 3, 2, and 1. And see if you could just play that, see how that feels in the hand using those fingers. Or if you care to, you can divide it between the two hands, especially if you're just going to be chording along. And then from there, go to your C major 7th chord, which would be G, B, C, E. Again, using fingering 5, 3, 2, 1 if you're playing it all with the left hand. And just alternate back and forth. And I would say use 4 beats per measure. And you can even come up with your own rhythm if you wanted to. So if you wanted to come up with a rhythm of 1, and then you hold that for 2, then go 3, and then go 4 and then switch and do the same thing. So basically you're alternating between C minor 7th and C major 7th. Okay, now let's go from that to our next chord, which is going to be F major. And I would say play that F major chord in first inversion. So you would play it A, C, and then F, and just chord that along. As a quarter note for 4 counts. And then repeat that in the next measure, and then switch to an F minor chord. Same thing, you're using first inversion, so that means your A flat's going to be on the bottom, followed by your C, followed by your F. And for these chords, you can use the fingering 4, 2, 1, because they're triads, so you can use that. Okay, so let's go back and recap what we have so far. So we have C minor 7, followed by C major 7, C minor 7, followed by C major 7, and we have an F chord, followed by another F chord, F minor, repeat that chord for another 4 beats. And now let's go to E flat. So E flat will also be played as a first inversion chord, so use 5, 3, 1 if you can for that, and then G, B flat, E flat. So play that E flat triad, just chording that for 4 counts, and then switch back to the F chord for 2 counts, and then switch to G. So G will be in root position, so you're playing G as GBD. Then go from there to C major 7, the same way you were playing it in the beginning. And all this, by the way, is slow, so you don't have to do it at a certain speed or anything. You can just take it slowly. Take it slow. So F minor, we're down at C major 7. And then repeat that. Okay, so let me go with what we have so far. We have C minor 7, going to C major 7, followed by C minor 7, followed by C major 7, followed by F, repeat the F, F minor, repeat the F minor, E flat. Now you're going to divide this next measure into F for 2 counts, followed by G for 2 counts, and then switch to a C major 7. Repeat that, then go C minor 7th, then go to C major 7, then C minor 7, going to C major 7th, and then F, F, F minor, followed by E flat. So this is the first time you've played E flat in the sequence. So E flat will be played as a first inversion triad. So G, B flat, E flat for 4 counts. And then switch to F for 2 counts, G for 2 counts. Then go back to how you were playing C major 7 and repeat C major 7th again. Next measure, E flat. Next measure, 2 beats of F, 2 beats of G. Then switch back to C major 7th again, C major 7th, repeat that. Shift to E flat. Keep the E flat, and then you'll end the progression with C major 7 for 2 measures. So hopefully you're able to do all of that. And so if you missed any of that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to post it on C Major's Classroom. So that'll either be later on tonight or tomorrow sometime. I may just even wait until after I finished with the C Major Radio Show podcast episode and then post it so you can see it all at once. So if you are joining us for the C Major Radio Show, you know that we've shifted to this platform. So you should be able to find everything closely together just by looking up a search. Just looking up a search for C major. And then just finding C major before the show and then C major, the C Major Radio Show. But what we'll do on tomorrow's episode of the C Major Radio Show, I will just tell you, I will describe to you how I want you to place this on the bass staff. And then I'll give you an option to play it in the right hand as well, and I'll describe that as well. So a couple of options for you. So hopefully you like that progression. I had started to go over another progression and I just thought, no, I think I like this one. But in the future, what I plan to do is give you more progressions. Now, let me say this. I think we are wrapping up 12 weeks. So I'm planning already to just take a pause next week. I don't know if next week means I will just play like a repeat episode or something else. But we will definitely come back and start the 12 weeks all over again. So don't think that just because you have been listening to previous episodes that it's just going to be the same old. We're still going to tie in new things because new things are happening every week. So the shout outs are current. The other things that are going on in the community that I get involved with, those are current, those are new. So I want to be able to share that as we go along. So speaking of which, now we're going to get to these chords that actually came about as part of my visit to my friends who were performing last Saturday night in New York. So I'm going to come back with their chords back in a moment. And you're here on C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter. Thank you so much for being here today. And I just want to start this next part of today's episode by talking about a few songs that my friends were able to play at their gig. And they did a fantastic job, of course. They're all professionals. And so I was just happy to be able to find this online. And what I did, I just took the first page of the songs they did, and I just wanted to do like a side-by-side comparison of some of the chords that were used, some of the progression. So if you care to just jot this down really quickly, and then what I'll do is look up the chords for you in the dictionary that I have in front of you and just tell you how you would voice those. So I did say in previous episodes we weren't going to really talk about voicing, so we're not getting so much into voicing, but I will tell you what this book is trying to do, how it's trying to get you to play this on the piano, and I will just describe what you would do in the bass clef, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But so the first song that I was able to find online was something called Just Friends, in parentheses Sunny, and it was made popular by an artist that goes by the name of Music. So Musiq, if you care to look that up. But I thought it was interesting. The chords start with an E minor. And of course you can always transpose this. So if you didn't want to start on an E minor chord, you can start on a different minor chord, but you would just be transposing. And I'm not going to state Roman numerals so much. I'm just going to state letters. So E minor, followed by D minor 7, followed by C major 7, followed by a B7 chord with a sharp 9, E minor, followed by D minor 7, followed by C major 7, followed by B7 chord with a sharp 9, and E minor. So already you're starting to see some of these chords are used in a pattern. So each chord would be played for 4 counts because we're in 4/4 time. And you can play this slowly if you wish, but this is the order of the chords. So what I like to do, I like to play it in root position first, just so I can hear what that sounds like, and then start working with some of the inversions. So it was a little confusing when I have to say, because when I looked up B7th with a sharp 9th, and the way that was written in the score, it seemed to me it had a note in the score that didn't belong. But I think you have to think about some of the liberties that are taken, and also take into account some of the voicing options as well. But if I look up that first chord, just E minor, in the book that I have in front of me, they like to play that E minor, they like to have you play that E minor chord as a first inversion. So again, you wouldn't just play E, G, B. You would play it as G, B, E. And then put your little finger on G, your third finger on B, and then your thumb on E. So that's E minor. And then you play it as bass notes. And then from there, you would go to a D minor 7th chord. So then for that, same thing, you're playing an inversion of that. So rather than play D, F, A, and then C, you would invert that as F, A, C, D. So that's the order. And that's your D minor 7th. Okay, next after that, you go to a C major 7th chord. Okay, so even with this one, you wouldn't just play C, E, G, B. You would play the second inversion of that. And so you would start by playing a G on the bottom, followed by B, followed by C, followed by E. And then the fingering would be 5, 3, 2, 1 for the C major 7th chord. And then the chord that I found most interesting, and that was the one that was a little confusing at first, was I'm thinking, okay, why does the G carry over in this chord? Because there shouldn't be a G in the chord. But they just held it over as basically, it looks like a pedal tone, if you would describe it that way. And then the B7th with a sharp ninth. And you can say it as an added ninth. So let's look up that. Or a raised ninth, you can say it that way too. Okay, so it's B7th plus raised ninth. And sometimes you'll see it as a plus sign in parentheses, or you'll just see the sharp sign, which looks like a number sign. And I love my students that are just learning about sharps and flats. They aren't afraid to ask, and they aren't afraid to say, you know what, I didn't really understand if sharps go to the flat, or sharps go to the right, or flats go to the right and sharps go to the left. So I love answering those types of questions. But if you play it on the piano just going by letters, you would basically need to play an F sharp, followed by an A, followed by a C double sharp, and that looks like a little X. It looks like a lowercase x, followed by D sharp. So basically you're playing a D up against a D sharp, but you see it as, and you should hear it as, a C double sharp. And that's the chord, and that's the way that they have you playing it here. And so basically the B is left out. Or in the case of the score, what they did was they left the B in the bass clef, and they actually ended up playing the chord in the right hand in the score. So there are ways to do that, but still, if you look at it, they've left out the A. So I don't think you hear the A in the accompaniment, but you definitely hear the A in the melody. So when the singer says, girl, I, if you're in that same key, he's singing a G going up to an A. So that's where you find your A. So it's always fun to see. You know, some of my students get really confused if they're doing an analysis and then they're looking at the score and they're going, well, where's the rest of the chord? So you really have to take into consideration all of the moving parts and then put those in. Okay. So I just wanted you to jot that down and then start to think about how these same chords could be used in a different piece. So here we are with Rock Steady, which I was glad to see the words and the music are by Aretha Franklin. So she gets all the credit for that song. And there's copyright information on the score as well. So you can see that information too. But what I liked is that it doesn't start out, and if you know anything about the song, it starts out with an organ sound. And then, you know, the bass comes in. And then the start of the song is really no chord. It's just kind of a bass rhythm that's very popular, which is fun to hear. And then the first chord that you hear, and the only chord that I see on this score, is an A7 with a sharp ninth, or A7 chord with a raised ninth. So, you know, it's interesting to hear that the song starts with that, whereas in this other song, they're using a 7th chord with a raised ninth, like right before the introduction, and then the song starts 2 notes in the melody, and then the first word that's aligned with a chord is a minor chord, but this one is totally different. So I would look up how you would play an A7th chord with a sharp ninth. Now, I think I had a lead sheet to this as well. So I just want to compare really quickly. If I can put my hands on my notes. If they use the same chords. And by the way, I did audition to be part of this band that I went to listen to. But I just told them, I said, listen, thank you for inviting me to try out, but I really don't feel like I have the same laid back vibe. So I need to work on my vibe just a little bit more, because they really know how to groove. And we were able to stay in touch and keep the friendship going. So that was nice. But if I had to do it all over again, I think I would just take a different approach. Okay, so I actually happen to have a couple of the lead sheets. Actually, one of my other friends, who performs for everybody in New York. I mean, he's a fantastic keyboardist, song stylist, if you want to call him that. And really understands what it takes to groove and think and keep things going. So I'm going to pull out this lead sheet. This one's for another one I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Okay. Alright, so for their version of Rocksteady, they actually do it in a different key altogether. It looks like they use the key of G. So they don't start with the same A7 with a raised ninth chord at all. It looks like well, you know what? Maybe this band did use a different key. I didn't even ask them what key they were in, but this is from my friend's score who plays the same song. So it looks like he's starting with, well, it looks like, I think he played, in the bass he played a G7 chord, then followed by a G9, and then he just repeat that. It looks like it's a vamp of some sort. And then after that, you have a bridge, and then you go to like a C9. So it seems like it's pretty simplified, harmonically speaking. Okay, but I think there are many ways to play songs. What I enjoy is hearing the score and seeing, what's done as far as the recording goes, and then seeing what they do with it live. That's always so interesting to see. I just recall this band leader that was really, really good at making the live performance sound equal or better than the recording, just by the choices that he made. So, okay, so let's leave Rocksteady and let's go to Tell Me Something Good. Now, I really have to say I really enjoyed playing this because it was like these descending chords. And we talked about last week chromatic chords and descending and ascending with chromatic chords. So this wasn't really chromatic, but it was still descending, which I really enjoyed. And Tell Me Something Good is by Stevie Wonder, but it was made famous by Chaka Khan as far as the singing part goes. But so you'll see the credit given to Stevie Wonder, words and music by Stevie Wonder. And I'm going to actually do a shout out in the middle of this right now, because one of my students happens to know this pianist that has toured with Stevie Wonder. So, shout out to them. We don't have applause today to applaud as we do shout outs, but you can applaud if you want, add your own background effects, and that's fine. It seems that we're getting away from all these different effects here on C Major Before the Show. At least we don't have them in place for today, but that's okay. We can always add in some different effects later and and see what we can do to bring a little bit more movement to the show. But Tell Me Something Good, words and music by Stevie Wonder. Looks like it starts off in the key of A flat, and it is funky. And Stevie Wonder is not the easiest for me to play, but I really enjoyed reading the score to this. It's just fun to play it. So just write this down quickly. Basically, you're going from A flat to G flat to F minor to E flat minor, and all of those are done in 4 counts. So you're basically changing your chord for each count, and you're alternating. So it's right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, and it's just the way that it's played is so fun. It's like basically 8 notes for each chord. So if you think that as a running movement, running, 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 A flat, G flat, F minor, E flat minor, and then you go to D flat minor, C flat, followed by B flat minor, followed by A flat. Now here's the first song that uses a 13th chord, so you know how to find the other chords that I just mentioned, so just find those. If you're not comfortable with C flat, just think of C flat as a B chord and just look that up. And I know we described that much later than the other chords, but it's okay. And you can play them as triads with the root as the bass, or so it looks like. But yeah, actually, you know what? The A flat bass is going to start before the chord. So it's like bass, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, as you're descending there. And that's so fun. And then you arrive at the G flat 13th chord. So let's look that up for a moment. Make sure I spell it correctly for you. Okay, so a G flat 13th chord, you could play that as an F flat in the bass, followed by an A flat, followed by B flat, followed by an E flat. So basically playing your F flat chord as an E natural, if you want to talk about it inharmonically, and then go up, that's your little fingers on the E flat, also known as E, and then A flat, put your third finger on A flat, second finger on B flat, and then put your thumb on E flat. And that's it. That's how you're going to position that chord. Then basically you're just repeating. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chords. And I would say A flat is the more frequent of those chords because you go A flat, G flat, F minor, E flat minor, D flat minor, C flat, B flat minor, A flat, and then G flat 13th. But the G flat 13th is played for 2 measures, or 2 bars if you care to say that. So you have basically 8 counts of the G flat 13th, and then you go back to A flat to actually start the song. So the words, you ain't got no kind of feeling inside. So that's always so fun to hear the singer sing that too. And then even when you say, I got something that'll, and then it goes into the rest. But listen to that recording if you can. It's just a fun recording to listen to. And believe it or not, that song is a few decades old, I'll say it that way. It's been around since the 70s. But it's still considered a crowd pleaser. Very pleasant. Pleasing to the ear. Okay, now the next song I want to get to is Boogie, Boogie, Boogie. And I believe the song was done by A Taste of Honey. moderate funk also came about in the 70s, like late 70s. A pre-80s funk song. And what I loved about this chord is that, these chords, is that they're split bass chords. One of my favorite types of chords to play. So it's where you see something over something. That doesn't mean it's a chord over another chord. It means a chord over a different bass. So then you have an A minor 7th over D, followed by a D minor 7th over C, followed by a D minor 7th chord. And we're still in the intro because the intro is really long. Well, it's longer than most, I'll say it that way. And then you go to a G minor 7th chord. So basically you're going to repeat that 4 times. So let me look at my friend's score and see what they did. So again, it's always fun to see how professionals write this down for themselves. And that's what they did. They said basically you're vamping and then 4 times for the vocal. And see, they're using different split bass. So it looks like they took theirs to actually, you know what? They kept it the same. Yeah, they kept it the same. They just didn't describe the chords at the beginning, what you're playing, but they just wrote it out in notation, so I could see that. And then, rather than say a B flat major 7th over C, they kept it simple and just said B flat over C. That's basically what they did. Okay, and then you're vamping on that for 4 times. And then you have a bridge, it looks like, and then you go to, looks like they wrote it out as A minor, D minor, G minor 7th, and then a C 7th with a flat 9th. So I didn't even get that far with, I see, A minor 7, D minor 7, G minor 7, then C 7th with a flat 9th, and then you have 2 bars of rest, it looks like. But they didn't even, it's like the order is different. They didn't even bother to let me just double check this really quickly. Well, in this lead sheet, they just didn't bother to put all the things that we see here in the introduction, which I'm seeing in the first page. But still, it's fun to see. It looks like they were able to write out the structure of the song, so it looks like it's very repetitive, and you just have to have the right groove with it, so that you have that funk feel to it. Okay, and then another one of my favorite songs to hear was A Long Walk, which we all know was made famous by Jill Scott. And she's one of the writers on this piece as well. So it starts off with a B minor 9th, and then you go to an E 11th, and then split bass chord B over C sharp, and then go to B minor 9th. And then after that, you shift to a G major 7th over A B over F sharp, B minor 9th, G major 7th over A, and then B over F sharp, B minor 9th, G major 7th over A, B over F sharp. So again, you can see the pattern starting to develop here. But I enjoyed just hearing some of the chords and hearing the order, and I thought, oh yeah, that's what that is. But the more you listen, the better you'll get with knowing what chords are doing and how they're moving and things like that. So just have fun with that if you can. So what I want to do now is just do some shout outs. So I'm going to play a little music for you. I'll be back in a moment. And you're here on C Major Before the Show. I'm your host, C Major Porter. Thanks so much for being here with us this evening. It's a Saturday night, and we are here talking about chord progressions. So I hope you got something out of today's podcast. I wanted to get to some shout outs before we end today's show. And I think I mentioned last week that we might do a poll everywhere this week. But I think we're still going to hold off on that because I think I might want to start including those with the C Major Radio Show. So we're going to hold off on that, but I think it's a great way to have you interact with us online. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do that and just have you take part in some live polling. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm on my C Major Before the Show homepage, and I just wanted to mention some of the things that I said I would talk about. So I said I was going to talk about chord progressions this weekend, which we did today. So thank you for being here for that. And then I also wanted to mention this, that anyone who's interested in becoming a private music teacher, there are articles on how to do that. So if you care to look up this article, musicindustryhowto.com. So it's basically explaining how to become a private music teacher. You can read the list, you can read the article and just, get an idea going, a list of things that you can do to start teaching lessons, and they will describe it to you in their own way. And then I also shared a link where it's talking about drinking matcha tea. So that seems to be the big thing right now. A lot of my friends are into that. And what I found is, along with the whole wellness theme of everything, and even in today's description, I said this is about music making and wellness. What I meant by that is sometimes you play certain chords in a certain order, and it just makes you feel good to hear it. I just know growing up, whenever I heard like my favorite song on the radio, and back then I didn't even know what it was I was listening to. I just knew that for some reason when I heard that song, my day would just go a little bit better. And now, having had a chance to develop on the instrument, on the piano, that when I sit down and play certain chords, I just feel better. So that's what I mean by contributing to your wellness. But if you're also into health, then there's this article that we posted that talks about drinking matcha tea instead of coffee every morning. And I'm definitely into coffee culture, but I found recently that drinking matcha tea with steamed coconut milk is really, really good. So you might try that. I tried it with soy. I tried it with almond. I tried it with macadamia nut milk that I was able to find at a really great price, by the way. But I found that matcha with coconut milk is really, really good. So you might try that, and it helps me get that same boost of energy that you get from coffee, but you just feel a little healthier, a little bit more well when you're drinking it. That's been my experience. So as you're listening to the episodes, we always encourage you to have your favorite drink in hand, your favorite coffee. And so in my shout outs today, I said we will talk about spoonful of sugar in our shout outs. And I have to just say I really had a nice laugh. I don't have my laugh effect to play for you today, but that's okay. And so I just wanted to say that some of my students are so hilarious. They really keep me laughing. They keep my day going when I see them. And they were doing very funny dance movements, I would say. And the grandparents are right there to see it all happen. And we all had a nice little chuckle about it. But imagine that, spoonful of sugar with popular dance movements. That was very, very funny. And so the other thing I wanted to bring up again on Music Making and Wellness, I just did a hashtag. There's something really popular that's going around nowadays called green juice. So shout out to all my friends that are drinking green juice, which is different from matcha. They're just finding their own blend. So whether it's apple, whether it's kiwi, whether it's celery, or something else, they're finding their own way to drink fresh juice and to keep healthy and to feel well. And then there's that shout out that I also gave a little bit earlier, that one of my students happens to know this pianist who 2 years ago was featured on the news as being called the next Stevie Wonder. So if you have a chance, check out that article. And then I see that I have a notification here, but that's about something else. Okay, so today is Saturday. Thank you so much for being here on C Major Before the Show. A few more shout outs. I have a student that was just starting his new book today, so he did really, really well. So shout out to that student. Shout out to one of my other students who is very excited about performing some of the music that is associated with Harry Potter. So I believe she's going to work on Hedwig's theme, and we're trying to help her with that. And so she has really great parental support for that. So shout out to her. Shout out to my other student who was featured on the podcast. She is going to be coming back. And she is keeping her promise to prepare the music that she will share with you on her next appearance here on C Major Before the Show. So we're looking forward to that. And then shout out to our lessons expert who's going to be here, I believe, soon. I'll say it that way. I wanted to say next week, but I don't want to promise next week. But next week will be perfect because we are taking a break from our Chords series, Piano for Parents series. And going forward, I don't know if I will keep calling it Piano for Parents because I just feel like there are other professional organizations out there who have certified programs for parents. They have teaching artists that go to schools, talk to parents about making music and what they can do to get their children involved in music. So I'm not trying to take anything away from that. If anything, add to it a little bit. And I know what I'm finding out just from an anecdotal point of view, just from observations, not research-based, is that it seems that parents have an easier time when it comes to their own music making with playing by chords and playing by ear. I don't know if that's been the true experience for other teachers. I'm really hungry to have those types of dialogues with anyone that wants to speak with me about that, but that's what I'm finding. So thank you again for listening to C Major Before the Show. It's been great to be with you on this Saturday evening, and join us here next week. We hope to have some new, exciting things to talk with you about next week. And again, next week we're taking a break from chords. We're hoping to just focus on just piano lessons. And then going forward, what we plan to do is bring the chord series back with a refreshed focus, and we'll say more about that coming up in our next episode. So have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the weather if you're having good weather wherever you are, and if you can, get out and make some music. Make the best music you can make, and I'll see you next time right here on C Major Before the Show. Take care.